Welcome everybody. I'm on my XS1100 1981 and it's got a sticky clutch, or what I could only describe as a sticky clutch. So I'm going to try and demonstrate that and then we're going to try and we'll fix it together. So it seems when I pull in the throttle, or pull in the clutch, sorry, it doesn't disengage immediately, and I'll try and illustrate that here. Okay, so watch the tack. Can you see it there as I pull in the throttle, as I pull in the clutch? Okay, clutch is in, and then it comes, and then it drops. Let's try again. Clutch in. It hangs up for just a second. It hangs up for just a second. Let's try again. I'll pull in the clutch. Hangs up, and then drops out. So there's something going on there. It's hung up, right? We need to fix that. I think I know what it is, but I thought I would, again, clutch in, hangs up, there it goes. Okay, so something's up. We need to fix it. I think it's the clutch plates sort of hanging up on the clutch basket, if you know what I mean. Oh, that's neutral. So we'll take it back to my place and we will attempt to, I think all that's needed is to file it. Because the clutch doesn't slip per se. It does a little bit after shifting, but I think it might just be the same effect in the opposite sort of way. Here we go. Yeah, it's okay upshifting, but downshifting is the pain. So here I'll clutch in and try and downshift. See, I can't. Yeah, I got to kick it really hard, and it doesn't come out right away. It doesn't disengage right away. So, yeah, again, it's hung up. Right here, we'll come off the throttle. So we're at 3,000 RPM. Come off the throttle, clutch in, hangs up, and then releases. There's a slight delay. It's not too bad, but it's enough that I think we need to fix it. So let's dig in. Here we are back in the garage. The right-hand side engine cover is the clutch cover. You can tell because that's where the clutch cable goes. So we're going to remove this outer cover, undo the cable, and then we're going to remove this right side cover to the motor, and we should get access to the clutch that way. I'm first going to drain the oil just so we don't have a mess on our hands later. The oil drain plug, if you're wondering, is right down under here. You can see it right there. Good idea to warm the bike up ahead of time so you get it all out. Okay. So it's a 19mm wrench. And away you go. So we'll remove this outer cover first, and then we should be able to gain access to the clutch cable and undo it. There you go, nice and clean. You can see how the rotating motion of the clutch cable is transmitted into in and out motion. Those aren't the technical words, of course. So I'm going to maybe loosen off at the lever and see if we can sneak this cable out of here. I'm sure it comes. Yeah, so and you can see that clip there. My hands are going to be in the way, but trust me, I'm just bending it back, and that exposes a pathway for the cable to come out. So we'll push up on this. I've loosened the lever and I should be able to slide the whole thing out. Okay, so we're gonna try this. Oh, we can just lift. There we go. We'll just use that as a lever. There, that's it. That's how it's done. Yeah, and then we'll just leave that alone. I didn't want to loosen that off anyway. So we're in good shape now. We're totally free. You can probably pull this out and clear. Tuck it away somewhere safe. Maybe we'll drip some lubricant down between the housing and the cable while we are working on this clutch. The idea here is to make this, the sticky is the issue, right? So I'm going to undo all these that look like a 5 or 6 millimeter hex head. It looks like a 6, and then we'll pop this cover off and have a look at the clutch. Yeah, it's a 5 millimeter Allen head. And we'll go around. Small. Help. Let me fix that bolt. Should just come right off now, I would think, unless I've missed two. What's it gonna get hung up on first? Oh, it might just be a bit of old gasket stickies. There we go. So what's going to be our issue here? The brake pedal? Yeah, I think we're free. I'd like to preserve this gasket if I could. Or is it too late? I've torn it. Damn it. Yeah, that gasket came all apart. That's okay. It would have been cheap for me. There we go. To get the new gasket. There's the inside cover. This motor is exceptionally clean, which is nice. And there's our clutch. So we'll undo these 6 bolts, and then there is something I'll have to check in order to get the clutch basket off. I think you remove these 6 first, and then anyway, we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out, and then I'll let you know. Interesting. Looks like somebody's been here before us, which is not surprising considering the age of the bike. But all in all, it's in pretty good shape. So my thought for the clutch binding was that the plates weren't free to move in and out on the clutch basket, but I don't seem to, let's see if we can get the light in there. I don't seem to see any sort of ridges. I will file that anyway. And I can see in there, it looks in pretty good shape. So we're going to disassemble this whole clutch, try and figure out why it could be sticking. It could just be that the fibers on the plates are just super dry, because I think the bike sat for quite a long period of time. So we'll take the clutch apart and have a closer look. So those clutch spring bolts were all 10mm head. In here it's 27, but first we need to knock this lock washer, the tabs down, so we can spin out the nut there. So a 27mm nut. I'm going to, I know there's some fellows online that'll put it in gear and block the rear wheel, but I've got an impact gun and I'm going to try my hand at just blasting it loose with the impact gun. There we go. Here's that locking washer. I'll try and walk it out. There it is. So these are the tabs that were bent up onto the nut flats there to lock it in. And I think I'm going to throw a couple springs back in just so the whole assembly doesn't, springs and screws, just so the whole thing doesn't fall apart on me as I take it out. I think the whole thing should come loose now. Yeah. Pop these in. Yeah, right. So this is, yeah, we don't want to, we'll just get it to the bench before we allow it to fall apart in our hands. This clutch is looking pretty good. Pretty clean. These parts don't look original. They look like they've been replaced at some point. So maybe it's just a spring thing. I don't know. See if we can get to the bottom of this clutch slipping slash sticking. It's sort of doing both. Seems strange that it would do both, eh? Okay. Don't lose that washer. It's a, I read that this is it's a concave washer. You can see it's got a bit of a shape to it, and the concave part goes towards the clutch. I'll leave this guy there, leave those washers on, and we'll, there it is. We'll meet you on the bench. Okay, let's dig in and see what we find. So there's just those two nuts, or there's two bolts and springs to hold it all together to get it off the bike. I'll remove those and we'll see what we're up against here. It's all looking pretty good, eh? For, well, like we figured, it's probably not, it's 40 years old. Somebody's been in here and it looks like there's new parts. I'll set those aside. There were some signs of moisture in the crankcase, and maybe you've seen in my previous videos, I was wondering what the smoking was, and I think it was just water in the gas. It was like a water vapor. So there's signs of rust here on this steel, and I don't think there should be rust there. I think you probably agree with me. See if I can pull that one off. That one is behind what looks like some sort of retaining clip. So we'll set that aside. I'll have to look into what exactly is worn out. Looking at it, I can't tell for certain, but I think you'll probably agree that these steels should be, and the fact that everything is just sort of sticking together, right? This, I think, should be super shiny, not rusty and brown. So maybe that was just it. Anyway, I'm going to continue cleaning it up, and I don't know what's best. Do you wire brush these or replace them? I'll have to look into it. I'll let you know what I find. We'll see you back here shortly. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to mention. If you can, I don't know if you can see how dry this steel is. It should be soaked in oil, and here it's virtually dry. They're varying degrees of, so as comparison, this one's dry and this one's soaked in oil. So I wonder if that was the cause of our sticking. And down there you can see it should be soaked, but it's quite dry as well. So the bike was sitting, it looks like it'd be sitting in a moist environment. So that must have been, I'm going to inspect here for notches and ridges where the steels engage, and also the basket where the friction material engages. But I wonder if our sticking was mainly from the rust and the dryness. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so as I'm cleaning up this clutch, here's the clutch basket here. It had a bunch of that rusty buildup in there, so that's all been removed with brake clean. And the reason I think the clutch was sticking, wasn't releasing immediately, because there are little ridges in here where the fibers, you can see them there in the reflection, where the fiber plates dig in, and then when they're released, they don't immediately relax and allow the clutch to spin or to freewheel. So I'll show you what I mean here. I'll run my file over this, and then you'll see the indents. So just a second here. So there you can see the indents, there it is, where the fibrous plates dig in and they have little troughs. So what I'm going to do is file down all of these edges. I've started up here. You can see this is totally smooth. I might get a little more sort of slack in the clutch between engagement and disengagement, a bit of a clunk as I open up this gap here. But I think removing, I've started here, when these are completely gone, the clutch should disengage freely. That's the plan anyway. So I'll do this. I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so I'm done. Every, basket spline on both sides has been filed with sort of a bastard and a smooth file. It's not. I'm sure a machinist wouldn't be impressed by it, but they're all flat, or more or less flat, and they don't have any divots from the old plates banging into them. So we should now get movement. When the clutch is released, they should move up and down or in and out freely, and that's the idea. So I'm going to clean up the rest of the steels. You can see they're a little bit rusty. This one came out okay with the wire wheel. The friction plates are soaking. I measured them with my caliper, and they're all 3 millimeters to 2.9 millimeters. I think the threshold for replacement is anything under 2.8 is to be replaced. So because this is sort of a budget build, I'm going to reuse all the friction material. So it's just a matter of cleaning up the steels, and we'll reassemble it, put it back on the bike, and see how it goes. So before we start reassembling this clutch, I just wanted to show you that the friction plates are within spec. Take my digital calipers here. We're looking for, can you read that? It says 2.95, and 3 is new and 2.8 is replaced, and they're all more or less the same. And the other measurement is the clutch springs need to be 42 millimeters in length and non-compressed, and there we go, We are at 42. They got a bit of a spring to them as you'd expect, but we're just over 42. So we're fine with the wear components, and I'm happy with how the steels turned out. Check them out. They look brand new. I just wire wheeled them, both sides obviously, all of them, and so I'm happy with how that looks. So we'll give everything one last cleaning, then we'll oil it all up, reassemble it, put it back on the bike, and see if we've made a difference. So the total investment here is just going to be a new clutch cover gasket. They're about $5 or so. Everything else is just clean and a little bit of labor, my filing over there, and hopefully we've remedied the situation. Okay, it's reassembly time. Just make sure that this thrust washer is still down at the bottom. We'll put in this, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but this is the way it came out. Slides in at the bottom, and then we start with a friction plate. And if the reason for the clutch acting up before was that the clutch was dry, well, we've solved that because this clutch is going to be super wet. So we just alternate friction material, steel, friction material, steel as we go. And that's it. Okay, so we've got our friction material and steel all assembled, lining up the splines of the steel so I can fit this inner hub in there. That's the next step. Everything's totally drenched in oil. They'd all been sitting in my oil pan overnight, So I'll put the hub in, align it with the splines, drop it in, and then I think we're pretty much ready to put it back on the bike. So once the clutch is in place, you've got your concave washer, which goes on next, and then you have your nut locking washer. Can only go on one way. It engages these tangs towards the center of the bike. And then lastly, the nut. The nut gets torqued to 50 pound-feet. So that's what I have my torque wrench sent to, and we'll snug it up now. Maybe I'll just zip it on with my impact gun, and then we'll torque it to spec with my my wrench. Don't want to go too far with that, but saves a bit of spinning with the torque wrench. Now the bike's in gear, so all I need to do is step on the brake. Well, so I'll just step on the brake here. Don't mind my footwear. Okay, there we go. 50 pound-feet. We got pretty close with the air gun, but it did move a little bit before it clicked, so I know it wasn't over-torqued. We are right at 50 now. So we'll bend up the flanges to lock the nut into place. You sort of have to be careful where you're bending so not to damage the clutch assembly here. That's what I'm going to try and do. Well, try not to do. Here we go. That's not going anywhere now. We'll give it a bit of a pinch with the channel locks. Really lock them in there. There we go. Let's have a closer look. You'll see those flats are right up against the nut, so we're good. And now it's just the rest of the, or remove these springs, put that outer star cover on, snug all those bolts down, and we're almost there. All right, so the clutch is all back in the position. Make sure you don't over tighten these 6 bolts, sorry. You really don't need to torque them down much because they're into soft aluminum, and you don't want to be stripping that part of the clutch. So don't overdo it. I know it's hard not to sometimes. So next step is to put the clutch cover on and get her fired up and take it for a spin. Now before I connect the cable here, I wanted to show the adjustment for this clutch arm. This is way too loose. I've intentionally loosened it off so that I knew there'd be slack in it, and then I'm going to loosen this jam nut and run the Phillips head shaft right up against that 6-bolt clutch sort of decompressor, and we're going to set it up just so there's just a tiny little bit of slack, just so I know that I'm not constantly applying pressure to the clutch. So let's loosen off the jam nut. Okay, it was pretty loose, and then I'll run this in until I feel it bottom. Okay, it's just bottomed. I'll back it up just a little bit, and then we'll lock it in place. Just a little bit of movement. I could remove even a little bit more. I just want to make sure that I'm not constantly, because that could, if that was pressing too hard, that would be like you're pulling your clutch lever just slightly all the time, and that could lead to some slipping and premature clutch wear. So I'm going to run that in just a bit more, lock it in, see how we're doing there. Yeah, that's good. Just a bit of movement so I know it's not running up against that 6-bolt star piece. I say that's pretty good. Okay, I'll get I'll tighten this up, get the clutch cable in, get the cover back on, and I think we're home free. So let's reconnect the clutch cable. Just feed it through the hole, seat it right in there. There's a little clip up near the carburetor, maybe you can't see that, holds the clutch cable housing in there, and now we have to try and get it in that little basket. Wow, that was easier than taking it apart. It should just snap in there, and then we'll there it is, and then we'll bend this. You can see the clip. It seems to be part of the little holder. Bend the clip over so it can't slide out the slot, and then we'll adjust the clutch at the lever. And now the outer cover goes on. Next step is to fill it up with oil. See how it goes. That cover's a bit ugly. Maybe I'll tidy that up. This bike's been spray bombed at one point, so it's got some, yeah. I'm gonna take a minute to tidy this up. What a difference. Look at that now. So that, there was somebody that spray bombed over it. It's not in perfect shape, but it's in way better. This is the original paint underneath that ugly spray bomb. It just comes up off with a little wax and grease remover. So that's nice. Much better. Pop that on. Phillips head screws back in, and then we'll fill her up. Okay, let's see if this is any better. So we've got the clutch all back together. See if when I pull in the clutch here, it still kind of hangs up a little bit. Maybe it's in need of some adjustment. Let's do a couple shifts. The bike is a bit cold still. Clutch in, shift, that feels a bit sticky still. And it just needs a bit of time to, this bike is smooth. That'll be in third, we'll go to fourth. Shifts up nice. Let's try a downshift. So we're off throttle, clutch in. That's not bad. Downshift again. Okay. Upshift. And get off the I'd say we've made an improvement. We'll try a downshift through the tunnel here. That was pretty good. Okay, downshift again. Yeah, we've made an improvement, that's for sure. Let's see if we get any slippage where we got slippage in previously. On the throttle, upshift. Watch out for the bump. I'd say, yeah, I don't know if it was the filing or just soaking it in the oil, but we've made an improvement. So we'll get on and over here and see if we've got any slippage. Downshift, no, we won't bother these children on their bikes. Maybe they're not children. Small people. Okay. Okay, well, it's not slipping anymore. Man, this thing's pretty quick. I think we've solved it. Let's go right here. We don't want to go under the bridge. Man. This bike moves. How old is it? It's 40 years old. Oh, right on. Thanks for seeing that project through to the end with me. Didn't cost us much, and I'm happy with the results. Maybe some adjustment here of the clutch cable, but I'd say generally we're good. Right on. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. Let's give it some bonus beans through the tunnel here.